The date is Wednesday, October 23rd, 2024. Commissioner Megan Hickey will be absent from tonight's meeting, as will Commissioner Buzz Artiano. James Franklin, Commissioner Franklin, will be attending electronically. You can see him, he's up on the screen. Please note that we're doing a hybrid meeting with in-person and virtual attendance. If a member of the virtual public would like to make comments during a public meeting, just please use the raise hand function on Zoom, and you'll be assigned a speaking time. And if you're listening in via telephone dial-in, press *9, and that will raise your hand, and then press *6 to unmute yourself. This meeting's being recorded by the local scene, and we thank them very much. And a recording and a record of this meeting will be posted on the local scene website as soon as they are able. Anyone intending to make an audio or video recording of this meeting should notify me at this time. No? Okay. Kingston's Open Space Committee is seeking a new member. This is just an announcement. The committee assists the conservation in overseeing the management and use of conservation properties to help all of us better access and utilize these resources in a positive way. This is an opportunity for 2 residents to assist in implementing the town's open space plan, help improve parking and trails, and identify future conservation and passive recreation priorities in town, among other benefits. You may inquire by calling the Conservation Department at 781-585-0537 or by emailing Juliana Denham, and that's jdenham, D-E-N-U-M, at kingstonma.gov. That's jdenhum at kingstonma.gov. So the first order of business is signing documents. Have we done that?
I just passed them around. We had the DOA for 11 Wharf Lane, the EO for 11 Wharf Lane. We had an invoice for Beals and Thomas for the Sampsons Brook Headwaters Restoration Project. We had a mileage reimbursement for myself, an invoice from W. Mason for office supplies, and a check to the Plymouth County Registry of Deeds for recording the waterways license for the Blackwater Memorial Forest Restoration Project.
Okay. On action items, well, you want to open a meeting? Open a hearing on it? I'll open up public meeting to discuss the request for determination of applicability, that's RDA, for 15 Crystal Drive. This is for a proposed grading and construction of a retaining wall and deck within the buffer zone of wetland resource areas. Let us know what you have there.
Yeah, I think we have the homeowner here. That's Ann Hart Davis, the homeowner. She submitted an RDA for all this. We had a delay at one point, and then she had mentioned that she was looking to do the deck, so we sort of waited on the deck information. So we have everything submitted. We reviewed everything. She did ask the contractor to make the deck board spacing 3/8 of an inch to make the deck pervious. The contractor has agreed to that. We have all the information about the footings, and she provided all the dimensions for the project. There is a vernal pool out behind the property, so this is within the 200-foot, you should say, 100-foot buffer to the vernal pool, which is 200 feet from mean high water. However, the entire project as proposed is within the existing yard area, within the existing fenced area. And it is in the outer stretches of that buffer zone. So the retaining wall also meets KWPR, being more than 50 feet from any resource area. This, again, is in the outer limits of a 100-foot buffer zone to BVW and the outer limits of that 200-foot vernal pool boundary.
Anything else?
Yeah, the last thing was just that, as I mentioned, it is located in a previously disturbed yard area, but also the space between the project site and the resource areas is densely vegetated. And this project is not changing any of that. You do still have a good amount of vegetation between the project and the BVW and the vernal pool. I would recommend, unless the commission has any other questions, issuance of a -3 determination of applicability, including the special condition that the deck board spacing be 3/8 of an inch to maintain a pervious surface. If the commission felt that erosion controls, were appropriate, we could also include that. I truthfully don't think there's too much of a need there, but I don't know. It's sort of standard, so we could always say you throw in appropriate erosion controls and have the conservation agent review before the project starts, so.
Okay, so those would be the additional issues. Do you have any comments you'd like to make?
I'm not sure, to tell you the truth.
You'd have to go up to the,
Well, you
if
can
you do.
wait. If you do,
Okay.
we'll get you up and we'll swear you in.
Okay.
We'll get you on the record. But you can wait, and if you want,
Oh, okay,
because we may have questions.
okay.
Are there any questions from the commissioners on this?
No, I think we're pretty squared away.
It's good.
Any comments from the public present or online? Well, if you have any comments you'd like to make to us, we can just move forward without
Yeah,
them.
I'm
You're good? All
having
right,
everything up to the board.
all right. Do I hear a motion to accept the request and issue a -3 DOA?
So moved.
Second.
All right. Are we going to
Are you
include
going
the,
to specify the,
Yes. Yeah.
including,
Both the 3/8 inch, and the erosion control.
okay.
Oh, wait, Matt, you said you didn't think it was necessary.
it's good standard practice.
It's good standard practice, it's just, I don't know, if the commission wanted, I know I said, if the commission wants to discuss it, but you also haven't seen the site, I'm the only one who has, I could pull pictures up. Like I said, there is a solid vegetated buffer there. Depending on how the work is being performed, there may not be any need, but if there was a lot of disturbance and you got a huge rainstorm, I mean, we may wish we had installed erosion control. So I don't think, you'd really just be talking about the downhill extent of the backyard. It shouldn't be too onerous to just do it, and then you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
It should be all
It's a
right.
standard procedure, we might as well stick with it.
Okay. Is there anything else? All right. And we have a motion to accept the request and issue a -3 DOA, and that's been seconded. So I'll take a vote. Dot?
Yes.
Jim? Kalina's a yes. Marilyn?
Yes.
And Brian?
Yes.
Okay, so this motion passes and you're all set.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your courtesy.
I'll have that permit, basically what happens now is we draft the permit in our office, and the commission will sign it at their next meeting in 2 weeks, and then we will send you the permit by email and actual mail.
And I believe I do owe money for the deck, for the permit, because they wouldn't take a check when I dropped it off.
Okay.
So I assume they'll bill me.
Just give the office a call and we'll see if I don't know if you need anything on that, because
Oh, okay.
it wasn't additional to what you had already filed.
Oh, okay. Okay, great. Well,
Cool.
thank you all
Yeah,
very
good luck with
much.
your project.
Good luck. Appreciate it.
Have a good night. I don't, what's the actual time right now? If it's 6:43, you could try to take the next action item.
Yeah, let's try that. The next action item is 26 Wapping Road. I'll open a public meeting to discuss the request for determination of applicability, that's RDA, for 26 Wapping Road for repaving the parking area and routine vegetation management within the 200-foot riverfront area to the Jones River and the buffer zone of a bordering vegetated wetland. The project also proposes the installation of a fence within the buffer zone of a bordering vegetated wetland. Do you have anything to say, Matt?
Yeah, I know Eric Diaz is on Zoom, but I think I can probably pretty quickly just run through what the updates are. If you remember at the last meeting, We still had some questions. The wetland delineation still wasn't shown in the plan, things like that. There were some issues with potential variances needing to be issued. At this point, we did receive all the updates that were requested. The property owners also discussed needing to do some improvements to the portico, whatever a portico is, up near Wapping Road. That was still within the outer ranges of jurisdiction, so I recommended that they just throw it in this filing, so they did that. And that is just sort of the entryway to the main building within a paved area. So we have an updated plan, the updated application. I wrote down that there was no detail or narrative on the portico improvements. Truthfully, I don't know that that matters much, because like I said, it is just within a paved area. They're working on the building within a paved area. So I would say that if that's gonna require any sort of major ground disturbance, then they should speak up, but otherwise, if it's structural, you know, they're working on basically the wall of the entryway, then I think what they provided is sufficient. The wetland delineation was performed August 27th and is on the plan. They replaced the fence section that's within the 30-foot no landscaping setback with conservation posts, so that removed the need for a variance. They did add notation on the plan for 6 inches of ground clearance on the proposed fence for small wildlife passage. They added notation about limiting vegetative maintenance to twice per year unless otherwise necessary for property protection. It details allowable maintenance that would not require permitting, such as mowing, brush control, and removal of damaged or unhealthy trees posing an immediate threat, but states that a permit would be needed for removal of healthy trees, stump removal or grinding, and earth disturbance. The updated plan notes include provisions for cutting back or removing vegetation behind the fence as necessary to maintain the fence, and specifies that whenever possible, such work should be performed by hand. It also prevents cut vegetation from being dumped behind the fence, states it should be removed from the project site as appropriate. Just sort of a clerical thing, the plan appears to incorrectly show the 100-foot buffer as the 200-foot riverfront area in the legend. Essentially, just the legend doesn't match the plan for the 100-foot buffer and for the 200-foot RFA. So I don't think that really affects much, other than we would want an updated plan that could be sent to the office later for our records. There is natural heritage priority habitat on the property, but it appears to be well outside the limit of work. It's actually mostly, if not all, off of the plan as shown. So I think this hits the mark of what they were looking to do, which is get the work that they had done permitted in retro and provide a path going forward for them to be able to maintain their property in a way that allows them to do business while also protecting the resource areas and maintaining quality buffer zone habitat. So Commission has any questions? Other than that, I would recommend issuance of a -3 DOA with the following special conditions. On management requirement 3, as far as mowing, I would say for best ecological effect, fall mowing would ideally be delayed until at least mid-November, ideally December 1st. So if they don't have any problem with that, that would be a good special condition. And then I throw on the usual thing that we've been putting on every filing, which is there should be no chemical fertilizers or pesticides used within Commission jurisdiction. Any outdoor insect control applications must consist solely of natural organic products. Records of any application or purchase of such products must be kept on file should the Conservation Commission or agent inquire.
What about record keeping?
Say again?
What about record keeping?
In terms of the outdoor pesticide
Yeah.
applications or fertilizer, chemical fertilizer, any of that stuff, anything you're applying basically within jurisdiction outdoors, you should be keeping records of. We've been
Okay.
doing that as a standard for most of our filings now.
Kalina, may I?
Sure, but before we go to the commissioners, I'd just like to ask if there's a representative who'd like to speak. Mr. Diaz?
Yes, thank you very much. For the record, Eric Dias, registered professional engineer with Strong Point Engineering. I think Mr. Pinella really summarized things very well. He hit all the points that I was going to hit, so unless the commission has questions, it kind of sounds like all I can really do is mess things up from here.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Franklin?
All right, so Matt, just real quick, the the narrative and the recommendation about adding the language, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't we have herbicide in there as well? Limiting the use of herbicide in those areas, and if not, did we lose it somewhere? I just, in my head, I thought we had herbicide and pesticide and fertilizers.
You're talking about that second special condition that we've been doing all over?
Correct. Yep.
I mean, I suppose we could call out herbicides separately. I mean,
Right.
yeah. I think the thought was that, excuse me, I think the thought was that it was included under pesticide, but,
Murderous things, yes.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, I mean, yeah,
If I may, just to maybe help out with this, under note 7 on the plans, they do prohibit basically all chemical treatment, herbicides, pesticides, et cetera, and all other forms of chemical treatment prohibited within the 100-foot buffer zone. So if that helps, we're certainly fine with anything
Yep.
like that.
That's the intent, right? So that satisfies my question. I don't have objections, but Matt, I think that we should probably have that called out just separately, because it is a chemical treatment and it is herbicide versus pesticide, two different things, right?
yeah, I'll add that just to I'll add it to this, but also just to our standard blurb anyways, just to make sure it's called out so it's obvious.
I have
Anything
no
else?
further objection.
Anything else from the commission? Okay, any comments from other members of the public? No? Well, do I hear a motion to accept the request and issue a -3 DOA subject to the conditions specified?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Okay, a motion has been made and seconded. So we can take a vote on that. And Dot?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Galena's a yes. Marilyn?
Yes.
And Brian?
Yes.
So that motion passes. Thank you very much, Mr. Diaz.
Thank you all very much, and Mr. Pinella, thank you for your help. Thank you all.
Yep, I should have that permit out to you in a couple of weeks after the next conservation meeting.
Great, thank you.
Do we have a time to do another thing before we go to public hearings, do you think?
Nope.
Can you do the?
No, 6:45 is the cutoff.
All right. Oh, yeah, we changed that. All right. So we're going to move on to Section A of public hearings, and Section A includes 20 Marion Drive. This is a request for amendment for the proposed installation of a sediment forebay and rain garden within the 200-foot riverfront area of Smelt Brook. Do you have any comments, Matt?
So we had this at the last meeting as a public meeting to determine whether it would be heard as an amendment. Commission decided that it would, so here we are. It was also agreed at that time with the applicant that this was likely gonna go to peer review, so we were gonna put out a request for bids. And we did that. We sent it out to 3 different firms. We got 2 responses, so, you know, we can have certainly the representative, you know, give a presentation tonight on what's there, and then I can sort of read off what we have for responses, for bids. I know Larry said he was sick and was gonna try to zoom in. I didn't notice if he was on tonight or if you,
Didn't see him on there either.
Yeah.
That's fine.
but I don't know, is he fine, or are you fine with agreeing to a peer review vendor?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
that's fine. And I really don't have anything new to present than what we discussed last time, so I don't want to take up a lot of your time repeating what we did before,
Right.
if we're
Just
simply
identify
sending it out
yourself
to
for the
review.
record.
Yes, Rick Grady from Grady Consulting.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think everybody knows the story here, so,
Pretty much.
yeah.
Sorry, I had these printed earlier and now I don't, but what we have is 2 responses, and one of them was from LEC, and they did not have an in-house stormwater reviewer, so that made theirs significantly more expensive. Theirs came out over $9,000. I'm not even gonna go down to the number. And the second one was from Horsley Witten Group. Horsley Witten was actually the group that did the original peer review on this project when it was first approved, and theirs came out at $4,900. So that is our low peer review on this. So basically, like we discussed it the last time, what they're doing is they're reviewing that what is proposed would pass state and local regulations, and they're looking at the stormwater feature and determining that that is the best option, that there aren't other obvious options that would make sense. So if we don't want to make a decision right now, because you think like maybe we need to try something else, I'm more than willing to just email these out. We just got these in between, late yesterday and today. But, that's what we have anyways.
I find the world of review engineering to be very interesting right now. When we spend about $1,500 to design something and it costs $4,500 to $9,000 to have somebody look at it, something seems a little upside down with some of these numbers that we're seeing for reviewing. Seems to me that a review of a project should be a percentage of it, not a multiple of it. If I can make one suggestion, Pat Brennan Consulting, we've seen him in quite a few other towns lately, and he's been very reasonable in the time and the pricing on it. I would venture a guess that he would review this in about a half a day for probably about $1,000. And that would be more in line with what I would anticipate to review something that took roughly a day to a day and a half to put together. So we don't need anybody to spend a week reviewing something that took a day to design.
What was the name again, Rick? I didn't-
Patrick Brennan, he used to work for Amory Engineers. He went out on his own about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago.
And he's local?
Yeah, he's done some reviews for Kingston Planning Board, for some of the boards. He's doing quite a bit in Halifax, Duxbury, Situate.
He's done some 40B review.
Yeah.
I've seen a few
So you've
things.
seen his work?
Matt, I don't think there's any drawback to us giving a little bit more time to take some more bids, especially when you only got two and one's double what the other one is. It sounds like, it would be in the best interest of the applicant to actually see a more reasonable number.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's why, like I said, I can certainly reach out to a few more and see if we can get,
I think they're all so busy that they're just throwing big numbers at it and see if they catch a whale.
So in line with that, I don't think there's anything wrong with postponing this to the next meeting to let them, or even just, emailing what comes in so that there can be, forward movement in the next, whatever duration it is between now and the next meeting.
yeah, I think we did, this was a month ago, right, that we talked about this? And I sent those requests out within, I want to say 2 days tops, and it took quite a bit to get them in. So, I'll try. I'll reach out to a few more places. I can reach out to Pat and see what we get back. So,
Okay, so just, you need a motion to continue?
Sure.
Unless there's anything else?
I guess just a question, is the commission comfortable with Matt making that decision administratively? Or should we come back in 2 weeks? What's our, we're,
As far as choosing.
as far as choosing a reviewer, yeah.
I would think that would be appropriate for an administrative decision on Matt's part,
Yeah.
but, he's fine.
So I'd suggest
My,
that
my
we,
only concern with any of this is that, we shouldn't be inviting anybody that we wouldn't accept their number, right? So, administratively, Matt, if you're not comfortable with somebody, speak up beforehand, because once you take a number from somebody, it's asking for something and then saying that we, objecting, because we don't want to see them advocating for the town's interests in this case. I don't want to end up in that pickle. So if you're comfortable with it, I think we should just, accept that the low bid in these cases should be, the most qualified person that we invite, because the pre-vetting should be accomplished before the time that we, invite or solicit or whatever. Now, if we don't reach out, because in this case, it sounds like we're reaching out directly. If, we're providing just a solicitation that's generally speaking, in open, I think that's a different, but if we're gonna be reaching out and creating a little bit of time to, try to get somebody who's done work for us previously, and, we get a response from them, I think the smart thing, unless there's an objection by the applicant, is to just move forward with them, so.
Yeah, I think I follow you there. I'm not sure, like I said, I'm not likely to reach out to just one person. I would likely pick a few more vendors. I think I would include Pat. I don't have a lot of experience with him on the wetland side of things. Like I said, I've seen him review a few different projects from 40Bs to other things.
And stormwater also.
Yeah, I can't remember off the top of my head whether that was a part of
Yeah.
anything that I've reviewed from him before. So I'm not speaking about him. I'm sure he's a great engineer, I'm not.
Yeah, what are we
Sure, you gotta-
reviewing on the wetlands side of things? Because we do have an approved wetland delineation. We've already conceded that the pond is riverfront. I don't know what we
Yeah,
really.
the only thing we included on that was that what was
And-
proposed would pass all
Okay.
of our guidelines.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
Well, if we're agreeing to, if I may, Madam Chairman,
Yes,
if we're agreeing to continue this until the next meeting, then it gives us some time to explore options, whether he's one or he's not one, but we have time to explore options and come back with numbers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
where I was going with that is I just thought the next meeting was too soon.
That's honestly what I was just gonna say, is truthfully, the way this is gonna work, even if I'm working directly with Rick and Larry on this in terms of agreeing on whoever the lowest bidder comes out as, then they have to drop a check off to us. I have to wait until that check clears before I sign the contract with the peer review vendor, which takes way longer than you would expect in 2024. So that's, I think, like 8 to 10 days after I get the paperwork submitted to the treasurer's office before I get, notification that the check cleared, which is, it's pretty wild, but that's the way we have to do it. That's the way I was told I have to do that, so.
I was gonna suggest the first meeting in December rather than clogging up your agenda, because honestly, I think it's gonna take a month to pull this all together, and
yeah, sure, that makes sense.
that's where I was going with that.
Do we have the date for that? Anybody know
I
offhand?
think I have that in the, back of the dialogue.
What do we do first?
December 11th. And on that note, I put on that we should discuss probably canceling the second meeting in December because it's December 25th.
Well, I don't really agree with that, just for the record,
Okay, you're welcome to your opinion.
my opinion, as Unitarian.
So you're suggesting continuing to December 11th, and in the meantime, do we need to be checking any erosion controls or anything like that, or have we all squared away? What's the,
I haven't been out there in probably 3 or 4 weeks, but we can take another look at it.
that would be great. Thank you.
So
Can
could
I ask
hear-
a question?
Yes.
By putting it out to December, does that bring it into time weather-wise where you won't be able to do what you need to do?
I'm factoring that in already, honestly.
Okay.
Unless we were to get out there in the next 2 weeks, we've missed the season.
Okay,
Yeah.
right.
Could I hear a motion?
Motion to continue?
Yes.
Sure.
To December 11th, 2024. Do I have a second?
Second?
All right, then Dot
Yes?
and Jim.
Yes.
Colleen is a yes. Marilyn
Yes.
and Brian?
Yes.
Okay, we'll see you then.
Thank
so
you, and we'll
much.
coordinate with Matt in the meantime.
You got it?
Thank you.
Thanks, Rick.
Thanks.
Are we ready to move on to section B?
Sure.
This is 70 Summer Street. It's a notice of intent, NOI, for the proposed installation of a private well for domestic water supply purposes within the 200-foot riverfront area of Stony Brook. Do you have any comments, Matt?
Sure. I really don't like the way this works.
Your computer or the civil process?
The way that PDFs work when you open it through OneDrive online. Okay. Okay. So there was a ZBA filing recently to bring this building from 2 stories to 3. That was pulled, so that's not in front of us. What's in front of us is the installation of a residential potable water well within the 200-foot riverfront area. The limit of work is shown on the plan that's up on the screen there. This is to serve, and correct me if I'm wrong with any of this, but this well is to serve 3 new residential units as part of a multi-use building on the 2nd story of 70 Summer Street. They recommended bollards in order to protect the well from vehicle strikes, because this is proposed in what is the parking area there in an area that was paved recently. Work includes saw cutting and removal of pavement, excavation of fill, installation of well components, backfilling and paving, as well as staging of materials and equipment, all within the 200-foot riverfront area to Stony Brook, a perennial stream. As background, the 2nd-story addition was approved by the commission through issuance of a DOA in 2020. Site improvements, including paving and repaving on this and the adjacent property, 64 Summer Street, were permitted in January of 2023 through issuance of OOCs under SE 0370933 after use of the enforcement process to compel after-the-fact filing under different ownership. After the issuance of those OOCs, 70 Summer Street was sold to Mimmorelia LLC. Already mentioned that. Plan does not show the shortest distance to wetland resource areas, though all disturbance is proposed within a portion of the property that is currently paved. The limit of work is proposed outside of the 50-foot buffer to BVW/inland bank, but within the inner 100-foot riverfront area to Stony Brook, AKA Hallsbrook. Wetland delineation is still valid until June 23rd, 2025, and the delineation was confirmed through the previously mentioned OOCs. The work approved under those OOCs is either in progress or yet to be performed. There was mitigation work that was not permitted through an enforcement order, but issuance of OOCs, including installation of a rain garden, which is in progress, and removal of landscaped beds for restored riverine buffer areas, which has not yet been performed. There are perpetual conditions from the previously issued OOCs that are still relevant. There was the part that came down from DEP, that the commission would include a continuing condition in the certificate of compliance prohibiting further alteration within the restoration or mitigation area, except as may be required to maintain the area in its restored or mitigated condition. There were 2 other perpetual conditions that were only relevant to 64 Summer Street and not 70 Summer Street. 64 is still under the previous ownership. That first perpetual condition, I don't think really applies here because this proposal does not appear to further alter any of the areas mentioned, only an area that's currently paved. There may be issues here in terms of getting a health permit based on some, sort of previously known conditions here in terms of how the property's been used in the past and some of the stuff that was found up against the wetlands, some of the stuff that's been filled there over time, but that doesn't really apply to the commission's review. They're gonna need review from Board of Health. Board of Health's gonna require water testing. Water testing will pan out, they'll be able to get that permit.
Can I expand on that point?
You can, I just don't think that we need to. It's, Board of Health is gonna review those
Okay.
things. Whether or not water there comes out clean or not is not really our wheelhouse. So that's just mentioning that is gonna get reviewed after this. The commission could throw some sort of a condition on there, like,
Board of Health approval.
pending Board of Health approval or something like that. There's
Okay.
really not a ton of need for something like that, but you could throw it in there if it would make the commission feel better. But I just wanted to give a little bit of background on some things from KWPR. When a riverfront area lacks the capacity to filter pollutants, contaminants can reach human populations served by wells near rivers or by direct river intakes. and again, you have to think about this, I guess, a little bit backwards. A significant portion of the Stony Brook riverfront area in the vicinity of this project and site lacks that capacity due to hundreds of years of development, including on this parcel. To this proposal, this is simply a statement on potential human health effects rather than a regulatory point under KWPR. In talking to the health agent, in order to get a potable water permit, the applicant will need to submit water testing results to the health department. But I believe in order to get those results, the commission would need to permit the well installation, and that's why we're here. I did want to talk a little bit about snow, again, from KWPR, talking about riverfront areas. The key to selecting effective snow disposal sites is to locate them adjacent to or on pervious surfaces in upland areas away from water resources and wells. And also, the commission may prohibit the following with regard to snow disposal. Snow disposal into any water body, and it goes into detail, including wetlands. Snow disposal within a Zone 2 or interim wellhead protection area of a public water supply well or within 75 feet of a private well where road salt may contaminate water supplies. Snow disposal on top of storm drain catch basins or in stormwater drainage swales or ditches, and it discusses why that's problematic. The reason I bring that up, we didn't discuss snow disposal during the previous iteration here. There were no wells on site. There are water resources on site, and I think it's worth discussing whether there's a plan for snow removal here, especially if you are gonna have a residential use. They're gonna want that cleared, and it just needs to be stated that it can't go into the wetlands, and it can't, I mean, there's basically limited space on site to put this, especially now, you know, having a potable water well there, so that's just worth bringing up. There was a mention of minor activities in the application, where under the Wetlands Protection Act, something like installation of underground utilities, and it says, for example, electric, gas, and water within existing paved or unpaved roadways and private roadways or driveways, you know, essentially would not need regulation under Wetlands Protection Act. I said the proposed work appears to meet that standard depending on whether, and this is an honest question, whether a private well meets the definition of underground utilities. I imagine it probably does. It's just not the same as a water line running through, you know. So if it does meet that, I would say, yeah, it appears to meet that standard. And it would depend on whether all trenches were going to be closed at the completion of each day. But minor project status is only relevant to the Wetlands Protection Act and not KWPR, and this was filed as an NOI under both. So while it may or may not be true that it's a minor activity, it is filed under both anyways. So I think the commission's still within its rights to review and condition the project as needed to protect the wetland resource areas and interests. The lot was already out of compliance with the 15% impervious maximum set by KWPR, but this proposal does not appear to change that percentage at all. But it does recommend the addition of bollards that are detailed on the plan to protect the well that's proposed in one of the parking spaces outlined in the plan of record. In some cases, installation of water supply or irrigation wells may have detrimental effects on adjacent wetland resource areas, especially streams. In this case, I do not expect that 3 residential units worth of water would significantly reduce flow in Stony Brook or water levels in its associated wetlands, but that is a personal opinion, not based on data. So the commission is always within its rights to require evidence in these cases in order for applicants to meet their burden of proof. We do not, to my knowledge, have a DEP file number on this yet. I don't know if you guys got anything. I haven't seen
I
it.
didn't check it.
I don't think we have a circuit rider yet for the southeast after Andrew
I
Point
didn't
left.
bring my phone in to
So that
check
might
it.
have slowed things down. So I did just note that no permit should be approved, really ever, without the issuance of a DEP file number. So we are waiting on that. Other than that, you know, pending actually getting a DEP file number, the commission may vote to approve the proposal through issuance of OOCs, including any special conditions deemed necessary, or vote to continue the hearing to require further information. I think in this case, we have to continue it anyways based on not receiving that DEP file number, and especially on this site where DEP did have some feedback the last time. It's within the commission's rights to vote in denial of the project for failure to meet burden of proof, but I don't recommend that action in this case. I did mention we need to should discuss snow removal, and that may require a special condition. It's just my opinion from quick review that the site lacks an appropriate snow storage location, so that may need to be removed depending on how much snow is received in individual storms. I don't know how long this project is scheduled to take, but any stockpiled soil should be covered if left overnight. Otherwise, the existing erosion control from the previous filing that are still present are likely insufficient. Otherwise, they are sufficient if you do cover those. The commission may require all previously approved work be completed before construction starts, such as restoration work in the rain garden. You could also make that contingent on issuance of a COC or just staff confirmation that work is complete. It's not a requirement, but could be done.
You're done?
Like I said, you could choose to add special conditions making the permit contingent on BOH approval, such as passing a potable water test. You could probably also mandate connection to the municipal water system at a time when connection would be available. I would imagine the only reason we're seeing this filing is because of the water moratorium, and while there's probably a water connection to the building, they're not allowing the extra units to connect. And that may be a way to mitigate over time that continued draw on the wetlands, through different drought periods and things like that. If approved, we should state that this permit is issued in addition to and does not supersede the previously mentioned OOCs, and that all special conditions issued under that still apply. And I did throw in that standard special condition that we've been throwing in on everything regarding outdoor chemical use, and with that sort of herbicide thing that Jim just brought up as well. Yeah, that's all I got. It was a lot, sorry.
That is a lot. Would you please identify yourself for the record?
Sure, Kevin Grady from Grady Consulting, representing the applicant. I don't really have a lot to say after Matt's 4 pages of review there. Basically what he said is accurate. There's a moratorium on water connections. The applicant bought this property with the understanding that he was going to be able to, he bought it to have these apartments in it, and then in the meantime there was a moratorium put in place, and now he's got a devalued property. We're trying to help him get it back up to the value that he was anticipating when he purchased it. And the only way to do that is to install a drinking water well. We designed the well in a location to maximize setbacks and protect the interests of the Wetlands Protection Act and Kingston Wetlands Protection. Erosion control, short duration project. As Matt said, it's 3 units, so it's a small water draw. Based on the design and the intent of the project, it's our opinion that there'll be no adverse impacts. As far as snow storage, we did basically the way the stormwater works on the site is it all runs to the end of the parking lot and then into this rain garden, which filters it before going further into the buffer zone here, and then to the wetlands and to the river. So we do have some treatment on site prior to discharge to clean the runoff.
The treatment being the rain garden?
Correct.
And that's
So the there's a grass area between the parking lot and the rain garden. So there's a little bit of a buffer strip there. Then it goes through the rain garden, which has filtering capacity between the vegetation and the rain garden soils. Then it either infiltrates or overflows through a crushed stone weir to hold back any sediment and also to reduce the rate of runoff to protect from any scour, etc. And that's the intent of that. So with the snow melt and storms, the rain garden with proper maintenance will protect the resource area from sediment from the roadway, driveway, parking lot, etc.
Will it also drain that puddle that forms Have you
Yeah.
done anything to stop that puddle from
That,
forming?
that puddle's gone.
Oh, good, okay.
Yep.
That was the intent of that, I think, was to get that to drain off.
Well, I assumed it was, yeah.
I-
Just
I
quickly.
think what happened with that is halfway through the construction, the previous owner was running out of money and sold it, and then this owner took over and has been working on it.
Just quickly, we were discussing that, because I mentioned earlier the KWPR section that talks about snow disposal. It says the commission may prohibit the following with regard to snow disposal, and then number 5 is snow disposal on top of storm drain catch basins or in stormwater drainage swales or ditches. Snow combined with sand and debris may block a storm drainage system, causing localized flooding. A high volume of sand, sediment, and litter released from melting snow may also be quickly transported through the system into surface water. It's up to the commission how they want to see that. I mean, this was built to basically prevent flooding and to mitigate additional impervious surface from paving that area. I don't know if it was intended or designed to be able to take every storm. I don't know what the condition of that snow is going to look like. I don't know how the parking lot is treated. I don't know what that means for maintenance on like O&M plan or something like that. So I'm not saying it's a horrible idea. I'm just saying you may want more information on whether that would work. I'm not trying to say that the commission should be hard on the applicant and make him remove everything from the site, but
But it could be a lot to ask of a rain garden. I don't know what the capacity is, but.
that would be my thought, is that it may be a lot to ask volume-wise, but it may also be a lot to ask maintenance-wise, and in terms of vegetation, if you end up with a really high salt load or sand and everything like that, and there, I don't know, it depends on property management practices, and we don't really know. if that would be problematic.
Significant storms is where the issue probably lies, because a small storm is gonna, melt and be just like a rainstorm we just had, so, that we have most of the year here now. So, and if there's a large storm, he probably needs the parking, and we'll need to remove some of that anyway. But again, proper maintenance, if the rain garden is not functioning and allowing water to flow through, it's gonna puddle in the parking lot, which is gonna need to address.
Right. Yeah, that is a good preventative for stuff like that, is they're not gonna want a mosquito breeding pond in the back there, so.
Yep.
I don't know. Yeah. So yeah, that's all I have on that. I did have, and you haven't asked for it yet, but I did have an abutter send us an email and say that she was unable to make it tonight, but sent us comments. And if you want, I can read her comments and read what I perceive to be potential answers to her questions, and the commission can weigh in on anything. This was, I believe, the same abutter that had comments and requests during the previous NOI filing that wanted screening plantings, which I believe have happened behind the rain garden. So this is the Mills at 82 Summer Street. They would like to know the estimated duration of the project, the hours of operation for the project. How will abutters be notified of initiation and completion or any disruptions in the process, which I would say it's not standard for that to happen in any project. You get your abutter notification for the hearings, and then maybe in very special circumstances, there may be a requirement for something like that. It may be beneficial to the applicant to make sure that they reach out and notify, and I can provide, email contact for that, or phone contact, or it can go through us, however. It asks, will the Kingston Water Department be overseeing the implementation if approved? And I would say this has nothing to do with the water department. This is a private well. This is because of the proximity to our property line, our concerns would include noise, dust, erosion, and storage of equipment. The narrative states no negative effects to the groundwater or water supplies. Finally, any post-project cleanup and disposal of materials should be monitored to avoid anything being thrown over and left behind on our property. So I guess for starters, maybe Kevin could answer the estimated duration and hours of operation for the project?
I would think no more than a week. It's probably a day to drive the well, a day to run the line, and a day to backfill. They'll probably have to come back after doing the first layer of pavement. They'll probably come back and finish it at some point in the future. It could be a month, could be 6 months, but that also is a day. So add it all together, it shouldn't take more than a week.
Okay. And hours of operation, I imagine, is like
Standard,
daytime, right?
yeah.
Yeah. They're not gonna be out there at 5 in the morning starting, it's probably,
It's going to be more coordinated. None of these phases are a full day duration. So probably 8 to 4, and it's more coordinating after you drive the well to run the line, run the electric. None of those are going to take more than a day.
yeah. Any commission comments on anything that was in there?
Clean them, man.
That was Jim asking. Asking you.
But I didn't understand what he said.
Oh, he said Kalina May I?
Oh, yes, Jim, of course.
All right, so, I'm looking at the plan, hoping that Kevin can walk us through the AE zone, right? It looks like we're in a flood zone for this wellhead. Am I understanding the light blue lines correctly? Are we within the AE zone for FEMA, or are we outside of it because it's, on the other side of the line? Can you clarify that?
Yeah, so it appears that we're in the AE
That's in your
zone,
narrative.
and there's no base flood elevation associated with it. The lines are pretty random on here, and I don't have the FEMA map with me. But the project is not going to be changing the surface grade, have no impact on flood storage capacity. We're gonna put the grade right back where it is. It's in
Sure.
the paved area, so we have to match the existing pavement.
No, and I completely understand that. My concern is that there's potential, if we approve this, that there's going to be a water well that has high probability of being underwater, and when flooding conditions surpass the height of the well, or even the back pitch, carrying the water away from the well head, you can get some dirtiness into that water, which could lead to a problem. So the reason why I ask is because this seems like we might have an issue where the town's causing, a negative effect that can only be corrected by an impact to the wetlands, right? And that I don't think that's a proper path, right? So my feeling on this is that there's probably room for some internal dialogue where if there's already water going into the building, that they have what they need. We don't have to do this. If they need to pull a new line, they can do that without, I expect they can do it without, opening the pavement up and disturbing this area. It sounds like, that there's probably the need for a conversation and to see if we can get that approval or special approval or a variation or whatever, to help facilitate, the fact that we don't need to do this project as the way that's laid out, and it's already connected. And if it's just a matter of pulling a new line, it's way less impact than driving a wellhead that's, has a potential to allow infiltration into the groundwater when it's underwater. So I think there's risks here with what we see, and I think that there's a less risky way to do it from the wetland side, and I think that, we owe that duty to, advocate that this move in the other direction, and that the town permit what they've already permitted, right? Which was the development of this building into a, 3-apartment unit or whatever it is. So That's my thoughts on it. You know, I'd rather not see this move forward. I'd rather see, you know, the more direct path, probably the more cost advantageous path as well, to just, you know, upgrade the main, that's coming into the building that's already connected. It's not a new connection, it's maybe an increase, but certainly the building's already there, and there's certain rights that are, you know, already established.
Anything else?
Did you have any discussion with the water department? to
Yeah,
that
in
effect?
response to that, as you know, your standards are avoid. I forget the rest of the whole statement you have, but we didn't start here. We started with the water department. I've called everybody over there. It's been months. This was we've worked with Jason Silva, Paul Armstrong, we've talked to every, planning board, Chris Faraka. If you can name somebody else who works in the town, I've talked to everybody to try to find a way to help.
Did the water board actually review it and say no?
I did not go before them.
I would ask that we table this until after that step. And Matt, I'd even go further and say that or if we decide to do this, right, that there's impact here that can be avoided, and we don't see the reason to move forward with that impact when it's already connected, and have them say definitively, yeah, no, we're not going to do it, we'll take a lawsuit, because this doesn't make any sense that you guys have to go, you know, this far for it, because it's not the best path forward, and there's going to be those units one way or another. Let's move in the most direct path that, you know, doesn't potentially expose the occupants in that building to some dirty water, or whoever else might be in the groundwater at that point, once by driving a wellhead inside a flood zone.
Yeah, I think I was under the impression that the Water Commission had already said no to this.
There's a moratorium. I mean, they say no to everybody.
I completely understand about a moratorium. In this case, I think there's some extenuating circumstances that need to be discussed, and I think it makes sense to request that be done before we, you know, decide that, you know, this is allowable because there's no other option. Because there is another option. Let's pursue it. Make sure that they say no before, you know, with all the information on the table and our concerns, and move forward with whatever path it is. At that point, I think I get a different answer out of me. But right now, this is something that's otherwise avoidable, and it's just a matter of either waiting a little bit of time until they're, you know, whatever they're waiting for comes online, or we just let them hook up. Clearly, there's a building, and you know, the water usage is water usage. A little bit more, you know, it seems like a way different thing than a new building being connected, right? Altogether. So that's my request for the consideration, is just that we just table it and let that conversation suss out, and then we address it, you know, as it is. But the board should be saying yes or no on the record versus just, you know, background conversations. I think that's the most direct way.
And like I said earlier, we need a DEP file number anyways.
Right, yeah.
So either way, I think we're tabling this.
Yeah.
If the commission wants something along, you know, I guess like Kevin said, avoid, you know, if staff said no, but this hasn't been put in front of the board that would actually say no to it, and there's a case to be made that maybe this was developed before the moratorium, and I don't know.
But it's definitely a step that should be taken.
I have a letter from the Kingston Water Department on their letterhead. This memo's in response to a plan received May 6th, so we're going back to May, from the planning board regarding the above referenced property. After review of the plan, the Kingston Water Department has concerns regarding adequate flow for the proposed addition and potential demand. Please be advised that should an increase in service size be needed, it will be subject to the water moratorium.
That's pretty clear.
But they're not considering, right? And the boards have the discretion to accept something, you know, besides what's the standard line, right? So I understand a moratorium, but at the same time, if if what their moratorium isn't going to stop something and there's already connection, then I think that there's more to be considered by them, and the wetland impact of the alternative should come into play, I think, in their conversation. So I do think that sitting down with the board that's, been appointed to decide these things is the most prudent path versus just the staff response to the review of the plan.
Another thing.
Might not get you where you
Wasn't-
want to be, but at the same time,
wasn't
at
that
least we'll
letter
know
from
that
the-
we pursued everything that we could
From the board.
on our
That
side.
letter was from Chris Varaca, I would
Chris.
imagine.
Yeah, no, it's on the
It was from
Kingston Water
staff.
Department letterhead with the commissioner's names on it. So he's representing the water department in this. As I said, done it, everything we can. We have 2 weeks, we could try to get before them and ask and wait for the no.
Can I ask a question? Did you look at the amount of water that's coming through the present pipeline, and would it be enough if you did use it?
The water department and the building department are requiring additional flow. If
Okay. Okay.
Is this a sprinkler thing? Do they need a certain size main coming in because you guys got
This-
sprinklers, or what
This
is it?
project,
I think that was.
the sprinkler's in.
discussed,
For some reason, they did not increase the size of the water service when they put the 6-inch sprinkler system line in. Then he sold it to the current owner with a 3/4-inch line that's in there, and the moratorium went into effect. And I've been bouncing around to everybody for months, trying to get this to work somehow for my client, who's, everybody knows him, he's been in town a long time now, and I'm stuck in the middle going around in circles. And since we have a few weeks, I'll call them, I'll see if I can get in front of them, but I don't anticipate we're gonna get the answer that Jim's looking for here.
While you're,
Getting that DEP file number.
while you're.
Yeah, I'm surprised we don't have a DEP number.
While you're doing that, is it possible to provide some information about Jim's concern there? I mean, if this, and I think we all realize this site, this is a flood-prone site, right?
Yep.
Can you provide information? I mean, truthfully, my knowledge of wells is not great. Is there potential, when this site floods, for what Jim is talking about, is there anything that would prevent that? Are we talking about a situation where not only are there people that are gonna live there that potentially could have negative effects, but is this potential for actually contaminating groundwater if it's not contaminated already, based on, the parking lot, oil, different chemicals, salts, things like that?
I think a lot of towns' wellheads are in the wetlands, in the flood zones, in various towns around here. I think it's a fairly common place to put them, downhill.
But is it also in areas that are pretty paved, commercial, lot of?
Well, no,
oils,
those
things
obviously
like that?
are in significant woodland areas.
That's, but I think maybe the problem, here is that flooding here isn't just flooding out in the middle of a wetland, it's flooding with contaminants.
Yeah, there's a lot of concerns from just the regulations on a water, a potable water well. You gotta be certain distance away from septics and any other source of contamination, right? So in this case, you basically got the asphalt, which I believe pitches towards where the well will be. Cars leak oil, cars bring salt, cars do a lot of things, right? So the soil will inevitably see those types of contaminants, right? There's requirements for new installations of wells that require certain slope and pitch away from these wellheads for a reason. So no matter what, it's a hole in the ground with a pipe that runs across it. No matter how tightly packed or driven it might be, there's still that annular space that's between the sand or whatever pervious, material they use at the direct cap, that is going to be, a pathway into the water that's otherwise just sitting there and they're pumping it straight up. So it's more of a concern for me just because I understand how some of these things work. We're gonna stay away from the public health side of it. We're just gonna point to it and say that this is a potential impact and there's other paths that are available. It's already connected. The sprinklers were already approved. They were already built. It doesn't have a proper flow to it, yada, yada, yada. There's a lot of reasons why, even if our original decision as a water department might not have been what was, proper, that this should go back with our, comments as a commission saying that, guys, this is not a good idea. You guys are here for healthy water. We think that you guys should really take another look at it because the alternative doesn't achieve what's going to be there, and the alternative is the only approach once you say no formally. So I think we should advocate for the connection to be through the traditional method so that we can avoid all the things that should be avoided on this. And as Kevin said, this was not his first option, and I think that with a little bit of support from us saying that there's real concerns here, that maybe we get to a different answer and everybody's suited better in all regards from that exercise. So that would be my recommendation. But it sounds like we're waiting on this anyways. But Matt, I would strongly advise having a conversation, just communicating our concerns here, so that when it does come back, hopefully, thank you. That actually helped, right? So.
I tend to agree with Jim in principle, as long as we stay in our own lane.
Right.
We have limited jurisdiction over the issues, and quality of water and safety of water is not really one of them. So
we have a little bit of room on that, but we have enough to say that this is an impact where it shouldn't be an impact, and we can still provide the compensation that we had without getting outside of our lane. We certainly don't want to close our eyes and say, we're not smart enough to bring this to everybody's attention and let them figure out the right path. We're just asking questions at that point, and there's really nothing wrong with it. We don't want to play dunce and pretend that our only concern is something, because we're not, at this point, we're just having a friendly conversation with another partner. And I think that we can certainly stay in those lanes without, because ultimately we're advocating on the side of what we're supposed to be doing, which is protecting the resources.
Am I hearing that Jim and maybe the commission wants the Conservation Department to draft a letter to the Water Commission regarding?
Yeah, I think if you could summarize this previous conversation, it would be helpful.
I think only if you can maintain it, any conversation that you put into a letter stays within our jurisdiction.
Mm-hmm.
Stepping outside of your jurisdiction is inappropriate under any circumstance.
But I don't think sharing the conversation would necessarily be viewed as too much getting out of your lane. I think it's important to communicate.
What I would recommend when we run into situations like this is that we can summarize a conversation and our concerns, and we can admit that we are not the appropriate body to decide some of these issues, but that it seemed warranted to have a conversation and a request because there is wetland ramifications that makes this the least prudent option. And for that reason, we're requesting that they look a little bit deeper and move forward, in consideration of the more traditional approach. So, we're certainly not pointing to everything and saying definitively this. We're speaking for the Board of Health, but we can say that there's issues that we discussed that we think needs to be looked at, and that it's not just one board that should be, discussing this. This might be something that, we all comment on directly, and move forward in that direction. But I think that there's certainly the ability to have, a friendly conversation between departments, because ultimately we're a small town and we can do that. And we're not, in this case, we're not fighting Kevin. We're advocating that Kevin's probably first choice was the right choice, and it's the best for our purview.
Well, I think there are sufficient problems to consider with the proposed well anyway that have to do with, water moving over land, so I could say again, we should stick with within our purview.
I request a continuance to your next meeting.
Do you think you'll have enough time to?
I don't have enough time for anything. As fast as I can get before the board, I don't know what their meeting schedule is. I'll contact them tomorrow.
And you'll get that DEP file number? and
I'm
the-
surprised I don't have it. I don't know what the
I
issue is
can
there.
reach out to them. Like I said, the circuit rider went to a different part of DEP, and we have not been assigned a new one, so I think they're splitting review between other DEP staff, so there may be a little bit of a delay there.
So we have a motion to continue it till the next meeting, and then we can see where we are.
Yeah, I'll move that we continue it to the next meeting.
Have a
Second.
second? Okay, the motion's been made and seconded to continue this to, what did we say it was, November
It is
11th or something?
November 13th.
13th? At 6, well, it's more 7 PM. And Dot,
Yes,
Jim,
Yes.
Colleen is a yes, Marilyn,
Yes.
and Brian.
Yes.
All right, we'll see you then.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin.
Have a good night.
Good night to you too.
Going back to the vote on the tax title town meeting article.
And this is good night, thank you so
Good night.
much. Thanks, Kevin. This is the department-sponsored article?
Yes.
Okay, want to tell us about it?
Yes. Let me, Jim, was I even sharing my screen on any of that? Are you able to see any of that through Zoom? The plan that, were you looking at the 70 Summer Street plan that whole time?
Yeah, you guys, it just kind of bumped back between you guys and Kevin. I didn't see any.
Okay, yeah, I wasn't sharing my screen that whole time, that was great.
I just had it open on the
Sorry.
side, that's why I saw it.
Anyways, tax title article. In order to establish a gravel parking area and proper public access to Henridge Conservation Area on West Street, at the 2023 annual town meeting, the commission accepted tax title parcel 41-9 instead of 41-6. This was done mainly in order to be nice to the residents of 32 West Street who had been encroaching on 41-6 for a long time. Unfortunately, 41-9 turned out to be far too wet to install a parking area. And I did include a sketch of the wetland delineation for the commission. There were wetland flags and an intermittent stream running through parcel 41-9. Parcel 41-6 also has wetland flags from an IVW towards the rear of the property, but it is sufficient distance away from West Street that a small gravel parking area could be just constructed outside the 50 or 75-foot area from the flags. And also from our 2022 encroachment enforcement site visit at 32 West Street, in the aerial imagery that I shared for the commission, there's already a gravel driveway on parcel 41-6 installed by the owners of 32 West Street as an accessory driveway. So there may be potential just to use that as an alternative to installing a parking area through slight modifications like a privacy fence and a small turnaround area. So this article, as written on the warrant, converts parcel 41-6 from tax title to the care and custody of the Conservation Commission. And a vote by the commission in support of this article would be shown in the town meeting warrant.
Any comments from the commission?
Helena, I think that, with the success of Blackwater Memorial Forest, right, I think, we got that parcel, we put it into, for conservation, the trail's there, we put in a parking area, through, volunteer efforts and, got fencing and all that other stuff. I drive by that every day, and there's, 2 or 3 cars there, a lot of times, right? I don't think, in normal times of the day that I see less than 1 car. So, I think that, people use these areas when there's access, and when they don't, they just sit there. So I think that, this is a really good idea, and, I'm obviously all for it. I'll do what I can to, personally to assist the efforts to, get what we did at Blackwater done there as well. So I think this is a good one for us to keep on.
Anything else? Someone like to articulate a motion?
All right, I'll make the motion that we support this article being on town warrant.
Is that what you're looking for, Mark?
Sure.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay.
That's all you need, right?
Yeah,
right.
if it was something more, something potentially divisive, yes, good word, something that was gonna be maybe challenged at the Attorney General's office or
Yeah.
something along those lines, and they would say, well, the commission didn't vote on the original language. It's a very simple article. It takes a tax title parcel and brings it into conservation
Interest,
control.
yeah.
I listed the parcel number. I don't think we need anything else beyond that.
And we're all in, so we'll take a vote and.
And do we have a second?
Jim seconded.
Oh, Jim, thank you very much. We have a motion, and it's been seconded, and Dot?
Yes,
Jim?
Yes.
Kalina's a yes. Marilyn?
Yes.
And Brian?
Yes.
And that motion passes, great. All right, we ready to move on to enforcement?
Sure.
First matter is 44 Rabbits Road.
So, I got an email from Jenna earlier this afternoon saying that the other homeowner, Tommy, is not available as he's been down south in North Carolina and Florida for over a month helping restore power from the hurricanes. Falmouth Precast has also not yet sent the information Mr. Armstrong, our building commissioner, requested. She followed up with the company this morning, and she plans to drive down there on Friday if she has not received anything prior to then. She said she was gonna try to be here on Zoom tonight, but I don't think she was able to do that. I had also shared with the commission the building department's email from October 9th. Really hate the way this PDF Zoom works. Dear Mr. Carroll and Ms. Goldstein, the Mass State Building Code requires that walls retaining over 4 feet of unbalanced fill require the issuance of a building permit. The permit application must include engineering data from a design professional that describes the materials to be used and the construction techniques required to meet project-specific design requirements. If the wall is constructed from pre-made components, the supplier and manufacturer may have the necessary structural information. Sincerely, Paul Armstrong, Building Inspector. So that gets at what the commission had asked earlier, which is go to the building department, see if you can get a permit for the wall as constructed. If you can get a permit from them, then we can discuss whether it would meet the standards of KWPR for retaining walls. The other things discussed, there was a discussion about the dock with the duck house on it. The commission at the last meeting had said you can go ahead and remove it, and I passed that information on. And because Tommy has been down south, I think that hasn't happened, so she's thinking that probably can't happen until the spring, which I don't think is a huge deal. So we're still in sort of a waiting pattern on this, but she has made, some progress with it. I think if we can push this off to either the next meeting or the meeting after, she should hopefully have some answers from the company and therefore from the building department. It may be easiest to push it for a month, if the commission's okay with that.
Continue for a month?
Yeah,
Just so that we
thank
don't have to kick it down the road. So that would be continuance to November 27th.
I'll make a motion to continue to November 27th.
Second.
We have a motion to continue the enforcement matter, 44 Rabbith Road, to November 27th. It's been seconded. Dot?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Colleen is a yes. Marilyn?
Yes.
That motion passes. We'll see them then.
Yes.
Didn't I say Brian? Sorry, Brian. I might say your name twice next time. Okay, moving on to 2 Wildwood Circle.
Yeah, and I'm actually sharing my screen now, so that's great.
Great.
It's very confusing that it shows up here and not elsewhere. Yes, so I did the site visit yesterday, so I did update that in the staff report for the commission. I'll just briefly go through my staff report. We did not, no, we did. We discussed this at the last meeting a month ago. So you do have a little bit of breakdown. I'll skim past some of what I wrote there. Did I talk at the last meeting about the development of the property and everything like that, or no?
We had that.
You did have that, okay, good. So yeah, we discussed that there were trees cleared by the previous owner of the property between 2012 and 2016. An above-ground pool was installed in jurisdiction, apparently without a permit, by May of 2016. The current owner has owned the property since September of 2018. So we had the report of unpermitted work on the property, sent out an NOV, and the owner of the property, Dan Cleggett, got in touch and said that what he had done is disassembled the above-ground pool and then modified the pool deck into a play structure for his kids. I did a site visit yesterday to see if, trees had been cut down, things had been expanded, get some photos, things like that. Before the site visit, the building inspector, Jason Silva, had visited the property and determined that the structure did not need permitting from the building department. So this is just a wetlands issue. So I was on site yesterday. The structure is a large, complex play structure built for the homeowner's young children. He said he didn't realize permitting was necessary on it. As I said, it was partially built using that deck frame from the above-ground pool structure. He said it was also using the foundation, although I'm not sure what was there for foundation. The decking that's there has no spacing. It is impervious, but it does not function as one large impervious surface. There are a lot of small and sort of narrow sections of it. I don't know what the overall square footage or percentage is on any of that. I don't have plans for it or anything like that. But there is kind of a sand area beneath it in one part, and then on the more down gradient side towards the back fence, there's a play, like a swing set with wood chips under it, so there is potential for infiltration through there. There's no aerial imagery showing the work that's just been done because it was too recent. So it is hard to sort of assess whether anything was done that expanded it at all, other than there was a fence installed with the pool by the previous owner, the perimeter fence that would look like it, held in the yard area, right, the maintained yard area, even though, as I said before, that was not a permitted yard area. This homeowner, it does not appear, extended that at all. Everything that was constructed within that chain link fence area. There would be potential to sort of measure that out based on aerial imagery. You could measure just to confirm that, but I don't know that that's really pertinent for this situation right now, for this part. There was a wetland delineation shown on a previous plan of record from 1999. There was a legally permitted addition and deck project, but that's just sort of background information. All the wetland delineation's 25 years old, so it's nothing that would be really valid, but it could be used as sort of a rough idea of where setbacks are. I did notice just when I was going through aerial imagery that there's a garage or a barn at the end of the driveway within jurisdiction, also with no evidence of legal permitting, but it appears in our imagery as early as 2005, so we're talking 20 years ago. Just figured I should bring that up. So yeah, basically I'll run through just really quickly. We can show the imagery, you can take any questions from the commission, but from everything that I can tell, it looks like a permitting and retro situation. I did see what looked like some sort of fill or something over the fence on the, the woods or wetland side of it, and the homeowner said that that's been there. It's on the pictures, everybody can kind of see that too. Otherwise, it looked like there was a good intact buffer zone, and I sort of talked about the importance of keeping that over time. So here you have, looking from the top of the structure closest to the house, down towards the woods, kids playing. There's a little sand area. Left side looking down. This is down the back closest towards the wetlands. So you can see that wood chip area there at the bottom that has the potential to take runoff from impervious surface. I don't know what that box is or the outlet. That may have been stuff that was there from the pool. That's what I assumed anyways. This is what I was talking about, where there was an area, you know, looking outside of that perimeter fence, you see a lot of dirt there. It's a little hard to interpret with a bunch of freshly fallen leaves on it, but definitely some bare dirt there. Homeowner said he has not been dumping anything back there. This is just stepped back a little bit with that same view along the back line. Looking at it a little higher up, you can see the house in that. This gets a little bit at the grade heading back towards the back of the lawn. And that is the area on the right where the fill looked. A little bit of new grass, some of the stuff had been seeded, reloamed, or sodded. And I think that's it. Questions, comments? No?
Nothing, Jim?
So yeah, I guess I can sort of wrap up just
Yeah.
by, from my opinion, other than sort of the appearance of that area that does look like fill was put there. I don't have any real evidence that that is new. And there's nothing on the aerials that show anything like that. What we're talking about for the most part is historic unpermitted work that created an expansion of the backyard area and the pool. You know, you could understand a homeowner not understanding that their backyard that's fenced in is not in jurisdiction. So I don't think the commission in this situation is looking at anything punitive. I think it's more, it needs permitting from the wetlands standpoint. It doesn't need a building permit, but that's not really relevant. I mean, it can be a pretty basic permit with an RDA filing to get that permitted and legal and documented. You know, and I think taking into account the fact that there was unpermitted clearing there, because you want all of it to be legal and above board going forwards. Yeah.
Okay, well, that sounds like a pretty straightforward plan.
Yeah. You know, because it is an enforcement issue, I think it's always important to kind of keep those things in mind, that if you think it needs permitting and we want to see a filing, then you should set a date. Yeah.
We want them to file retroactive.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
Permit bias or by a date certain?
Yeah, that's what I think makes sense.
So you want a date from us?
You can get a date. You have the not the applicant, you have the homeowner on Zoom if you want to ask, you know, whether he thinks a certain time frame is workable, you know, and understands that if you don't comply with a date, that then you're dealing with issuance of daily fines.
It's just paperwork.
It's an RDA filing. It's not just, you know, dropping paperwork off. It has to make sense. You know, it has to be permittable.
Did you discuss this at all?
Did I discuss?
A possible retro filing?
I discussed that was what I pictured the commission leaning towards in this situation, was that it wouldn't be a punitive
Right.
meeting, but they're gonna want permitting in retro. I don't think we talked a ton about what that would consist of, a little bit.
What kind of time framework would that be from the commission's point of view?
I don't know. I mean, in other cases, I think we've given, what, a couple months?
Yeah.
I mean, all of the, so, you know, for something like this, right? So an RDA doesn't need specific things like an NOI does, right? So you're not guaranteed to need survey grade plans and all these things, but you need what you need to get the filing approved, right? So you need probably to have a good, at least measurements of what, your impervious surface is. You need to know how far you are away from the resource areas. So we have a plan from 1999 that shows, wetlands on it, but we don't really know how far this project is from the wetlands now. So you probably need a wetland delineation and like a wetland sketch or measurements or something like that. Like I said, I don't want to specify exactly what's needed in this situation, because like I said, you need what you need to get the project through. But I think if you hire a wetland scientist and say, I need to permit this in
Right.
retro, I need you to do whatever it takes to get there, whether it's do a quick partial delineation or whatever you have to do. We just have to factor in that they're all really busy and it may take some time for them to get out there. Certain ones may not be comfortable delineating fully in the winter, but that's something I guess we could deal with if that happens. I mean, a lot of them probably do feel comfortable with it around here. Not super difficult in most habitats around here to do that. So I guess I would say, I don't know, 2 months I feel like is something that we've done in other ones, and my memory, so
Yep.
speak up if you think that's wrong, but I think you could say 2 months, and to make it clear that if there are issues in getting that filing done before then, we would want to hear about it in advance.
Oh, yeah.
If
Don't wait
there's
till
no
the last
communication
minute.
at all and the deadline comes and goes, then, like we do on all these other things, the commission would expect that I don't forget about that and I start issuing fines on day one after that date, other than if somebody reaches out and says, look, I had a really hard time finding somebody to take this on, and they said they were really busy, so I need an extra month based on what my wetland scientist said. I think that's something usually that the commission, when we get to that date and we get to that next hearing with the next commission meeting, the commission understands that and gives a continuance.
So do we want to pick a meeting date in which we want to hear this again, and then work backwards from there?
Is this Daniel's?
You might want to hear from the owner.
Yes,
And
that
what's
is
his last name?
Cleggett.
Claggett?
Hi, guys.
Ms.
Hey.
Claggett, yes, would you like to, do you understand what the commission is asking from you?
Kind of. I mean, I have no idea what it entails, but I'm kind of gathering what you guys are saying. Permitting and a lot of paperwork, and I have to get someone out here to help me with all that, a scientist or something. I don't know.
Yeah, it's sort of, it depends. The easiest thing for you, you hire a wetland scientist and or a wetland consulting company, and you tell them what you need and you ask them to do it for you. And they can prep all the paperwork and do anything you need. There's a cheaper way where you can do it yourself, in terms of the paperwork, and you may still need to hire somebody to do at least a partial delineation.
What is that? I'm sorry.
Delineation is basically a wetland scientist goes out and determines where the edge of the wetlands are, so that then it can be shown what the distance is between the work, typically the work you're proposing. In this case, the work you're proposing is already done, but it would be able to be measured then from the work you did to the wetland.
Can you
Okay.
suggest a resource for?
Yeah, I mean, we have a list of, consultants, wetland consultants that we typically see. We don't have recommendations, but we have a list of sort of the usual
So you don't have
suspects
to
that we
use the
can
yellow
share with you,
pages.
so you don't have to just go out, yeah, exactly, you don't have to just do like a Google search for local wetland scientists near me. So like, we can definitely help you in that aspect, get you on the right path, and then basically what the commission would be saying was that you have roughly 2 months, we would give you what the exact date would be to get an RDA, or get a filing. In my opinion, it would be an RDA filing. And a wetland scientist would know exactly what that is and what's needed. But you would have, that time to get that filing into our office so that it could be reviewed by the commission at the following meeting. And the idea would be to get what you did there permitted so that it's legal and you don't have to worry about it anymore. It's just called permitting in retro.
So would we be talking about around January 8th to bring that back to the commission?
This is October 23rd.
We had the holiday season in there, so I was actually thinking we could take a look at it on the 22nd, January 22nd. So maybe a deadline for them is to be the 15th. Would that be enough time for you, Matt, to have the paperwork ready for us to look at by the 22nd?
Sure, on an RDA from enforcement, I think. What day of the week is the 15th?
A Wednesday.
That's the Wednesday
I was
before the
doing
meeting?
Wednesday before our 22nd meeting.
Does that sound like a time plan that might work for you, Ms. Claggett?
I mean, I'll get right on it, and I'll do my best to do whatever I need to do to make that time frame. Again, I've never been through this before. I have no idea, you know, until I guess I get the paperwork, what it entails.
And you can understand that this is a retroactive filing, and so if there's some leeway that needs to be extended on the time, you should be due diligence to get it done within this time framework, but please just keep in communication
Yeah,
if there's any problems, so that you can work with the office.
okay.
Yeah, if you shoot me an email, I can share that list of wetland scientists with you. I can share the RDA form with you and kind of give you a quick idea of what to expect, and then, you know, just reach out if you have any questions after that.
And so
Okay.
the date you suggested was 22nd January to,
It would be
No,
January
deadline would be the
15th.
January 15th for
okay,
them to submit.
For the
paperwork.
deadline.
The deadline
for
for
the
them. would be
submission,
January
and then
15th.
for the,
We would hear it on the 22nd.
on the 22nd. So if I needed a motion, it would be to continue the matter to,
Are we making a motion to require them to file a retro RDA by January 15th?
Yeah, basically, and we should explain this to Dan too. The way this is gonna go is the commission's gonna vote now to issue an enforcement order mandating a filing by January 15th. So what's gonna happen is I'm gonna put some paperwork together that's gonna say that you have this violation, and that the way you're gonna deal with that is to get a wetlands filing for the work in the Conservation Department by January 15th. It'll either come certified mail or by constable delivery when I have that paperwork ready. And that basically will be what tells you you have to do the work. It's basically the paper version of what the commission's telling you right now.
Okay. Okay.
all right, so we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right. We have a motion, it's been seconded. Dot?
Yes,
Jim?
Yes.
Clean as a yes. Marilyn?
Yes.
And Brian?
Yes.
All right, that motion passes unanimously. Thanks a lot. We look forward to hearing back from you. Mr.
All right,
Claggett.
thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Bye.
All right, what else do we have? We can't do minute meetings, right? Oh, 29 Ring Road?
You have one more Ring Road.
Yeah, you ready?
Yeah.
We have the Maduros on Zoom as well. This is something that came up in 2022. We had a couple of concurrent issues on Ring Road. The commission voted to send enforcement orders compelling restoration planting, and those were sent out in June of 2022. We received a restoration plan, and EOs approving or mandating the restoration work were issued on September 14th of 2022, but no deadline was given for completion. Lesson. For me, but really, you know, for everybody. The homeowners reached out, they scheduled a staff site visit in May of this year as they felt the restoration was nearly complete. I did a site visit, I informed the homeowners that the species list was not followed and that many of the plants were not appropriate. I suggested they reach out to the wetland scientist on the project and get it back on track. They then reached out on October 15th of this year and provided evidence that they have replaced those plants with appropriate species, and from what I can tell from what they submitted for photos, followed the restoration plan, and the site is stable. So it appears to me that they have completed all requirements as detailed. I have not been on the site in October. I did the site visit earlier this year, and I can basically, from review of the photos, believe that everything is in order. I can always do another site visit if you guys want. I don't think it's necessary. I think the pictures show that they did what they were supposed to. So following our step-by-step enforcement guide and trying to do everything properly, I recommend the commission vote in favor of removing this property from the enforcement agenda. And if you choose to do so, I will issue an enforcement completion letter to the homeowners.
That would be good.
Do we have anything that the property owners would like to say or add to that? No?
I would love to add to it. I just would like to hear from us. If you could guide me in the direction of what you would like to hear.
No, I'm just inviting you to speak. If you
Oh,
don't
okay.
really have anything to add, that's just
All right,
fine.
got it. No, I mean,
We put in a lot of
we
work.
put
so
away
we're
too much,
Okay.
yeah, that's it.
So we hope that you will find that we're back in compliance with the town and of the enforcement letter. We thank Matt for all his work, but we don't really have much of anything else to add.
All right. Thank you.
I guess just in case, because I do hear from some people that they do actually watch us sometimes, cautionary tale for 2 of the ring road issues that we had were from the same contractor.
Yes.
Contractor, I don't know, no lettering on the vehicles and, just seemed to sort of tell people he could do what they wanted and then left, homeowners with
A mess.
a mess and expensive
Yeah,
issues to
right.
deal with in order to get back into compliance. So cautionary tale for anybody, if you have somebody coming out to do work, if you want to give us a call, if you think you have wetlands behind you, or same thing for contractors. If you think there may be a wetlands issue, call our office. We can try to guide these things and not have these things happen, because especially as staff, we feel horrible for people like the Maduros that have to deal with this stuff when they didn't expect any of that to happen, so.
Well, could I hear a motion? A motion would be to remove them from the enforcement.
I'll make that motion to remove it and from the enforcement agenda, and also to issue the letter to the folks so that they have that on record.
Second,
Okay. We have a motion. It's been seconded. Dot?
yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Kalina's a yes. Marilyn?
Yes?
Brian?
Yes.
Okay, that motion passes unanimously. I'm sorry you had to do this, but thank you very much for your cooperation.
Done.
Thank you. That's
Thank
a
you.
big relief. Thank you very much.
Have a good night, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night, thank you.
There's no meeting minutes. We have a couple of updates.
Yeah, I think we have minutes that we aren't able to
Right.
vote on because
Well,
it
then
wasn't.
we have them, but we don't
Yeah,
have a
just
form to
for,
vote
I didn't know
on
if that
them.
was in.
I'm
the
sorry, I
discussion.
misspoke on that. I meant in my mind.
I wasn't
there, and
correcting
I'm-
you, just wanted to make sure everybody got it. Did you say updates?
Yeah.
Okay, couple updates. I think I told the commission, participated with Plymouth and Duxbury on a grant that Wildlands Trust submitted. And it's another coastal habitat and water quality grant from CZM, very similar to what we did a couple of years ago, where we were able to put together a assessment of habitat restoration opportunities and priorities for the Jones River estuary. This is going to do something very similar, but for Kingston, Duxbury, Plymouth Bay, or however you want to organize those 3 towns when you say the name of the bay. So as part of that, Wildlands Trust had wanted to put together a coalition, and I didn't get a great feel for exactly how many people they were looking to be involved, not a ton, but they do want sort of people that have a stake in the health of the bay from each town to participate in just a couple meetings over the course of the grant to discuss goals and things like that. I did get Erin Benoit from the Waterfront Committee and from the Planning Department indicated that she would be interested. I think she would be great, so I did pass her name off to Wildlands Trust as somebody who would be good at that, but I wanted to open up to the commission. If any commissioner really wants to be on that, it's not one of the usual things like, hey, does anybody want to volunteer to be on this, awful thing that you don't want to do? I don't think we have the ability to have probably more than one commissioner on it if you guys do. I mean, we could try. But just if there's anybody who feels particularly like, A, they have slight bit of extra time, it shouldn't be too onerous, but B, really cares about the bay and wants to sort of see this thing through, then you don't even really have to speak up now. You can let me know. I don't think we need a voted representative. It just needs to be people who kind of have a stake and are interested. So, yeah, if anybody has questions on that, give me a shout. If everybody wants to be on it, then I guess we would have to like figure that out, but I'm guessing that's not the case.
Rock, paper, scissors?
Yeah.
I think Erin's gonna be great.
Yeah, I do, I agree, and she's also worked on the oyster side too, so I think she has a pretty good, good basis for that. So yeah, I don't know, don't have to speak on anything now. If you have any, if anybody wants to, reach out, and if there's more than one of you, then I'll ask who really
Okay,
wants
but
it
if
more.
we had questions, we can talk it over with you.
Yeah, for sure. Second update was bylaw update. So at that 2023 annual town meeting, we changed our wetlands bylaw, and the town enacted a tree clearing, grading, and
Protection.
stuff bylaw. I'm sorry, I don't have the
I have it in
exact
front
name.
of me,
But
that's the
we were
only
calling
reason.
it the tree clearing bylaw. The idea behind it was if you didn't already have a permit for something, then you shouldn't be clearing your lot. You can come forward for a permit specifically to clear your lot if you would like, or you just get your permitting from one of the various boards or departments. Both of those were fought at the AG's office by local interests and or local, I don't know what you want to call it, residents or groups, I'm not exactly sure, but regardless, you know, town council was involved in providing rebuttal to the claims of impropriety or whatnot. And I sort of kept reaching out recently to council saying, like, what's going on here? This has been a long time. When are we going to be able to use our new wetlands bylaw? You know, when are we going to get this stuff into account? And we had a training here with one of our lawyers, and I sort of questioned, hey, what's going on with this? And she said, I'll have an answer to you by the end of the day. And the answer was it had already been approved for 9 months.
Little did you know.
So, yeah, great. But in talking to Paul Gallagher, I think he recently did the update of the town's general bylaws, and I believe he confirmed that both of those are actually in there.
So it made it in?
Which I was astounded by, because I thought for sure that they weren't, because they, you know, we had been pretty sure they weren't approved yet. But so essentially what that means now is we can start using our new sensible sort of formulaic wetlands bylaw. I need to make sure I get all of our website and various things updated for it. And then the next step is we've been waiting to update our regulations for this. I mean, part of the reason for rewriting the bylaw was so that we could make the regulations match, you know, make the bylaw sensible, then make the regulations match. So this is now going to sort of spawn that effort to update our regulations, mainly to match this bylaw, but also it opens up to the commission or anybody in the town a discussion about, you know, whether any of the things in the regulations should be changed for better protections or to remove things that don't quite make sense. You know, we can kind of talk about all that. You know, it's not, the idea is not over-regulation, the idea is sensible regulation. So there are some things I think we may even want to like pull a little bit of protection from, just in order to make review of things easier. As far as the tree clearing bylaw is concerned, there's a lot of moving parts there, which makes it a little more frustrating that we had that 9-month period, because basically what we need to do now is make sure that the Conservation Commission's regulations allow review of portions of the project for tree clearing that are outside of jurisdiction, in order for somebody to be able to come and say, hey, I filed with Conservation Commission, I don't need that permit. You know, and the same thing with planning, zoning. We need to make sure that all of these boards have the ability to reference that bylaw and apply it, so that what we said is actually true. You don't need an additional permit. But we need to make sure that all of those boards have the ability to actually review a project for the purposes of that, which is essentially stormwater and, you know, unnecessary destruction of habitat, things like that. So that, I think, is gonna take some time. We don't have a building commissioner, zoning officer
Right,
right
we're missing
now. They're going through hiring on that, so, you know, it's gonna be working with the planning department and the building department to make sure we get everything.
boards.
Sure. Or support staff, you know. All the boards will have to
Right.
review these things, but in terms of the initial legwork, I think it'll be staff trying to get, hopefully work with council to make sure we get everything where we need it to be so that that can function. And then it's about getting the word out there to people that this exists and here's how we
And use it.
apply it and here's why this matters to you. Yeah. Another quick update, I sort of rushed in the building late because instead of going home today, I went out to Silver Lake to try to document
Oh my God.
some of the special concern mussel species, the state-listed mussel species that are in there, because obviously with the water as low as it's been, there's been a lot of exposure of freshwater mussels, a lot of them dying, a lot of predation. So I was just down there for that. Water levels are lower than 40, they're more than 40 inches down now. There's been no meaningful change on the Brockton end. The DPW director told me that they're in the process of trying to hire a physician that would assess water use and water loss and things like that. But there have been no water restrictions enacted. There's been no taking of additional water from aquaria. We haven't made any leeway in trying to find them more funding for taking aquaria.
They have money for aquaria, don't they?
They take 1.5 million gallons a day, but they're permitted to take 3.8, and that's not cheap, and they apparently don't have the money for that, or, so we had been trying to see if the state could shake loose some emergency funds or something like that, but that was all hinging on basically needing 4 things to happen, which is take more from aquaria, enact water restrictions, divert from Monpont starting October 1st, and rain. And we haven't had much rain. They couldn't divert from Monpont for the first couple of weeks because they needed to test the cyanobacteria bloom that was going on in Monpont that I think is still going on. The DEP determined that it was low enough concentration that they could divert, and so they were until Monpont dropped to a level that they couldn't divert anymore. So it really, nothing that has happened has made any meaningful progress other than delaying further decrease in the water level. So that's where we are. We were able to document schools of juvenile river herring patrolling the shoreline, looking for the way out. They're not gonna find it. I took a picture today, standing at the water's edge, looking towards where the Jones River is supposed to start, and it was a lot further than from me to the wall. It might have been double that. So the Jones River is no longer flowing backwards into Silver Lake. There's no flow there at all. So everything is bad. My department and the Jones River Watershed Association are doing what they can to document things properly, to try to have extra leverage for pushing for a solution.
It's a nightmare.
But it's not good.
Is Brockton still selling water to, I forgot the name of the town?
Abington and Stoughton?
Well, it used to be,
I think-
I don't know which one, but
To my knowledge, yes, I think they are still selling water to Abington and Stoughton. And as of our meeting with them, I don't know, 2 months ago at this point, they're providing Halifax with 500,000 gallons a day because Halifax had some issues with their water supply.
Oh.
So, the funny thing about the water restrictions is, to my understanding, Kingston has had water restrictions for much of the year because they're based on flow in the Jones River. Well, the Jones River has no source anymore because
Right. It's done.
Brockton is lowering the water level so much, yet Brockton has no water restriction,
Yeah.
And they can sell it.
and they can sell water from there. Yeah, so there's a lot wrong. I don't know what the answer is, but we're certainly being loud about it.
Good.
And yeah, that's where that's at.
Who's interested besides conservation commissioners, towns, employees? Have you got anyone in the governor's office interested in your?
Yeah, Representative Lenatra has been involved. She has been to my office to discuss it. She has been trying to shake something loose, and it was brought up at yesterday's Central Plymouth County Water District Commission meeting that that she's been pushing forward with legislation originally filed by Representative Coulter that would require
That's old news.
flow
Yeah,
to come out of Silver Lake into the Jones River at all times.
that's right.
Which would be great, you know. It wouldn't, I don't think, help right now at this moment, because at this moment, I don't think there's a way that they can
No.
provide it, but there may be financial incentive in terms of potential fines for not complying with something like that, which would sort of shift things towards finding a solution quicker potentially. There's a lot of discussion through Old Colony Planning Council and other people regionally about sort of fixing water in the region, and Brockton's piece of that is a major component of those discussions. So Brockton buying Aquaria has come up as an option, hooking Brockton up to MWRA has been an option as well. It's just a very, very expensive option, so, which honestly, all of the options are
Well, they could
expensive,
pass the
so.
costs on to Abington and Halifax and everybody else that they're selling water to.
That would be nice. Well, we just ultimately want a healthy herring run. We want healthy mussel populations, fish populations, all of those things.
So
What we have now is
are
not
those
healthy.
baby herons gonna die?
That remains to be seen. The juvenile herring should be already on their way out to the ocean or already there. They are not. There are a few schools of thought. One is that mostly they'll be okay and they'll go out in the spring when the flow is higher. The other is maybe the predation pressure on them will be pretty high. There's a lot of bass in there. Bass, by the way, not native to Massachusetts at all. Smallmouth or largemouth. Just a side note. The other things that I'm a little more worried about are their prey. So the herring are mostly feeding on zooplankton. You know, there may be a lot of juvenile herring in there. I forget if I spit the numbers out here before, but based on how many alewife made it in the spring and the proportion that might be female and the low end of all of the reported numbers for how many eggs each female lays, the low end count from my calculations was 600 million eggs. So now you factor in a lot of predation and a lot of eggs not hatching. What's your low end? You're still in the tens of millions, if not a little higher than that. So, I mean, you could have a lot of juvenile herring in there trying to grow quickly, feeding. Are the zooplankton numbers in there good enough to hold up for an entire winter's feeding from that many juvenile fish? Because they're not supposed to be there.
Right.
They're supposed to be out in the ocean by now. So I'm worried about that collapsing, and I'm worried about water quality because it's still not raining.
Is
There's
there any
still
other
no
way to get them
solution.
to the
So
ocean?
they're basically, when they can, diverting Monpont cyanobacteria water into Silver Lake while Silver Lake continues to go down. And as it goes down, you know, you have heating, you have algae issues, you have sediment, you know, turbidity, all of those things that, you know, in 2016 and the winter of 2016 and 2017, it was down to minus 99 inches. Right now it's minus 40. So we may be nowhere near the end of the water level going down. So I'm more concerned about water level and prey availability than I am them being eaten. But it seems troublesome to me that they might be fine and make it out by the spring. It doesn't seem very likely, and it's unfortunate because this is a gift.
Yeah.
We did not expect this many herring to show up this year. The counts at Forge Pond in the last few years have been very, very low, almost non-existent. And they were down regionally too, other than in a couple of runs, but we really did not expect this many to show up this year, and it seems like a shame to, you know, essentially flush them all down
Right.
the toilet. You know, rather than have that be the jump-off point for really restarting this herring run in a meaningful way. If we were able to get all these herring back out to the ocean, yes, they have the whole ocean to contend with, but there's an awful lot of them. And that's the beginning of your herring run returning.
And nothing from Division Fish and Wildlife? No input?
No. DMF has been involved, obviously, because we've been working closely with Jones River Watershed Association and the Division of Marine Fisheries on the tandem projects of the Lake Street culvert replacement,
Yep.
the Forge Pond Dam fish ladder replacement, and the dredging of Forge Pond in order to get that real connectivity back. All of which is meaningless, by the way, if there's no water.
Right.
But, you know, we have been working closely on all of that. You know, Brockton has allowed these things to happen. They do own land right where that dam is, so like they have signed agreements to allow this work to happen. So I think in some case, Marine Fisheries wants to make sure that they're still gonna, you know, they're not gonna sort of, you know, step back on any of that. But yeah, that's why at this point I'm just documenting. I wanna make sure if we have dead state listed mussels, I'm documenting that. The herring, we're gonna document that as best we can. Jones River Watershed is putting together sort of a video that they can try to shop around to see if anybody wants to pick up something that they can sort of spread around and get more people aware of the issue. JRWA put up the petition trying to sort of put more political pressure on all of this. Yeah.
Is there any way to net those little fish and get them out?
I don't know. I brought it up to our contact at Marine Fisheries. I hate to do things like that. You hate to interfere
The intervention,
too much.
yeah.
And I think it comes down to what he thinks as far as how the juveniles react, because I think the only real way to do that would be to use a seine net and then be putting them in totes of water and driving them down to like maybe Elm Street, because there's no water. I mean, you can't pop them over the other side of Lake Street. There's no water there either. There's no water, so you gotta get them down to where the water is and let them work their way down the saline gradient out to the ocean. I just don't know if they're all gonna die in the car in a tote on the way down there. They may be pretty quickly affected by being handled like that. So I don't know how they would feel about it. To me, if they think there's a chance, then it may be something that I wanna push them to try.
Yeah.
Because I think just saving any of those genetics and giving
Right.
any of them a chance
Right.
is better than waiting to find them all dead on the shore
Pretty
from
much.
a big
Or
fish
eaten.
kill when the oxygen levels tank from the water level
Right.
continuing to go down. So, yeah, no good news, but
Pretty bleak.
we're working on it. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, then, the next meeting will be held November 13th, 2024, starting at 6:30 PM. The time is now 8:35. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
A motion's been made and it's seconded. Dot?
Yes?
Jim?
Yes.
Helena's a yes. Marilyn?
Yes.
And Brian?
Yes.
All right, thank you very much. You've been wonderful. See you next time.